Hey folks, this is sort of a spur of the moment video, but I would sort of like to explore the unfolding of spirit or the unfolding of our inner nature. As many of you may be following some of the discussions abroad in the network, the idea that the integral philosophy that everything's interconnected, that there are underlying patterns. Um, is in itself only half of the story. I mean, I've been having a good discussion lately with a few different people, and the general idea is that we can make all the maps we want of reality, but underneath there are general, you might want to say, unfolding, intuitive awareness about things, and that isn't necessarily a result of overanalyzing or deeply conceptualizing components of our experience that are very, very direct. And because of that, even though, let's say, you have a direct experience of, some kind of greater reality that we're all part of, sometimes the best way isn't always to express it in a hyper conceptualized or modeled form. Sometimes the best way to express that is through art, is through poetry, is through speaking just with people, is through maybe not even saying anything. Um, so if Integral is already aware, as we might say, then how might we explore other mediums besides, as you know, as some of you might be aware of Ken Wilber's map making? What other components are there, more natural and organic, thriving, that don't necessarily need the the complex language that we have already, that's so abundant in this theory? What other ways can we have um, to portray the same sort of meaning, but in a more meaningful way? In other words, um, perhaps these maps are falling prey to the same issues that we might have seen them to be trying to solve, trying to they're sort of stripped of the inner life, of the inner meaning, and even though they may be all encompassing, they've missed that natural intuitive awareness that we had from the beginning. So if Integral is already aware, if this is already something that's a component of our consciousness, then why don't we try to explore ways to talk about this more colloquially and in a much more natural state of mind? Let's relax into that sort of state. Let's explore our consciousness together. Let's posit posit these factors in a way that, yes, is somewhat conceptual, but also perceptual, perhaps more, um, as you might say, cognitive, or more um, dynamic in nature. Some sort of better way at reaching these pliable and real, you know, stages. Here we go again using the descriptions. Stages of consciousness. So I'm basically asking, how can we find, as I was mentioning before to somebody, the the Tao of Integral. We have the navigator. We have these complex maps and these systems that are wonderful. But where's the sailing? You know what I mean? We have the navigation, but let's actually go out there and sail and explore and go swimming. Let's get wet. Let's get our let's get our hands dirty and do this. So yeah, let's explore these other components of consciousness and of integral that may have more grounding in common experience. Because if we can't relate to, I guess this is my third, or is it my third point? It's my final point. If we can't relate to people with this wall of terminology that's stopping us from under some kind of mutual understanding, if I have to teach you this hierarchy of terminology deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you finally go, ah, I see what you mean by all this. Yes, that's good for some disciplines, but I think this discipline, if it wants to survive, if it wants to become the, I guess you could say, a real medium for social change and conscious evolution, for igniting the sparks in our culture, in our society, then it's going to have to learn how to connect directly. And I think this is already happening with um, so many of us here, with, let's say, the Holons Network, and our discussions that are going on, and people are messaging me, and I'm messaging other people, and we're all kind of coalescing, we're all converging, and that's a very natural sort of thing. It's just sort of how people come together. Anyway, so I'm saying let's do more of that. Let's do more of that, and we're already doing that. Um, but I think that this might help magnify or accentuate a component that is often unexplored, as in fundamentally exploring the nature of our own awareness and the nature of how these concepts can materialize. Because if we are not from this point of view, if we're not expressing ourselves from this perspective, I wouldn't just call it depth as much as just perception, then we're not going to be able to relate to others as well. We're not even going to be able to relate to ourselves, perhaps, as well, as integrally as we might be if we did. So, the Tao of Integral, is it possible? Um, if it is, dare you, or dare I, get together and explore it, maybe write a little bit, maybe do some kind of collaborative experiment with this, or perhaps just a collaborative discussion on what it means to be integral without the maps, what it means to go swimming in the ocean of our consciousness, in the ocean of being, and exploring who we are, with or without the navigational assistance, particularly with it, but having seen it all, um, what's the next stage in our evolution? So I guess I'm daring you to step it up and explore our potential in our consciousness. Thank you for listening.